It's tough to imagine a Senate without him. It's tough to imagine politics without John McCain.
Reality setting in for emotional colleagues of John McCain. Public service forges ahead without the legendary senator. A week of tributes is now set.
Florida targeted by a mass shooter once again. This time it was a football video game tournament. 3 are dead, including the shooter.
And the legendary Neil Simon has passed away. The playwright leaves behind a list of iconic shows that shaped comedy in the 20th century. Happy Monday, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to Early Start. I'm Dave Briggs.
And I'm Laura Jarrett in for Christine Romans. It's Monday, August 27th, 5 a.m. in the East. Tributes are pouring in from around the world for John McCain, a titan of American politics and a true American hero. The Arizona senator died this weekend at his ranch in Sedona, Arizona. He was 81 years old. His death coming a day after his family announced he had stopped all treatments for brain cancer, which he had been battling for over a year.
McCain served as a naval bomber pilot, spent nearly 6 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam, famously refusing an early release. He made his name in politics as a conservative maverick, a giant of the Senate, two-time presidential candidate. McCain is survived by his wife, Cindy, 7 children, his mother, Roberta, who is 106. There are plans for a full week of memorials. We get the latest on that from Kyung Law in Phoenix.
Well, Dave and Laura, Senator John McCain, such a prominent national figure, but Arizona's favorite son. His services will begin here in his home state. The flags at the Capitol have been lowered in remembrance of the senator, and it is here where the services will begin. After a private service at the Rotunda, he will lie in state for 6 hours. Members of the public will begin to come in and say farewell. On Thursday morning, there will be a public memorial service at a local Baptist church in Phoenix, and then the senator departs for Washington. On Friday, the senator will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. On Saturday, a national memorial service at the National Cathedral. And then on Sunday, Senator McCain will be laid to rest at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, where he began his public service, beginning his military life there. That is where he will be his final resting place. Dave, Laura.
Kyung, thank you for that. Emotional tributes coming from John McCain's Senate colleagues. His closest friend in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, tweeting, "America and freedom have lost one of her greatest champions, and I've lost one of my dearest friends and mentor." Arizona's junior Senator Jeff Flake got choked up speaking on CNN's State of the Union on Sunday.
It was tough. I'm going to miss him. I have admired him, like I said, my entire life, and it's tough to imagine a Senate without him. It's tough to imagine politics without John McCain.
Indeed. Across the aisle, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says he is introducing a resolution to rename the Senate's Russell Office Building after McCain.
You don't meet many great men as you go through life. John McCain was one of them, and I'd like decades from now, little children to ask their parents, who was John McCain? And they'll explain his sacrifice, his patriotism, and most of all, his fidelity to do the right thing as he saw it. And when he did the wrong thing, to change.
Former Vice President Joe Biden also honoring McCain with these words. John McCain's life is proof that some truths are timeless. Character, courage, integrity, honor. A life lived embodying those truths cast a long, long shadow. John McCain will cast a long shadow. His impact on America hasn't ended, not even close. It will go on for many years to come.
We're told the White House drafted a statement for President Trump praising McCain, but it was never sent out. Several staff members believe the statement, which went through an internal approval process, would be released at the time of the senator's death. But the Washington Post reports Trump went against the advice of senior aides, including Chief of Staff John Kelly and Press Secretary Sarah Sanders, instead posting a brief tweet. There was no mention of McCain's military service or any praise for him at all. And the president's Instagram post had a photo of him instead of the senator. McCain was one of the administration's most vocal Republican critics.
Others in the White House, though, were more gracious. Both Ivanka Trump and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo calling McCain a patriot. Amid the flood of tributes, President Trump's Twitter feed was largely silent except for retweets of his own posts criticizing the Russia investigation and boasting about the growing economy. Former President Obama, who defeated McCain in 2008, issuing a statement with wife Michelle saying, "Few of us have been tested the way John once was or required to show the kind of courage that he did. But all of us can aspire to the courage to put the greater good above our own. At John's best, he showed us what that means. And for that, we are all in his debt." Presidents Obama and George W. Bush will deliver eulogies at Saturday's memorial at the National Cathedral.
As for who will replace John McCain in the Senate, well, that's up to Arizona's Republican Governor Doug Ducey. He says he won't name a successor until after McCain is laid to rest. Whoever the governor picks will hold the seat until a special election in 2020. The winner of that special election will hold the seat until 2022, when McCain's term runs out. Ducey has refused to talk about who he might pick to succeed McCain, except to say he would not appoint himself.
Senator John McCain left us with no shortage of memorable moments. His final lasting image, his thumbs down on the Republicans' effort to repeal Obamacare. Last July, he delivered a dramatic vote around 1:30 a.m., bucking his own party. That all happening 11 days after he'd undergone brain surgery. Just days before that vote, with a scar above his left eye from surgery, Senator McCain delivered a speech on the Senate floor, imploring his colleagues to do the people's work.
Stop listening to the bombastic loudmouths on the radio and television and the internet. To hell with them. Let's trust each other. Let's return to regular order. We've been spinning our wheels on too many important issues because we keep trying to find a way to win without help from across the aisle. We're getting nothing done, my friends. We're getting nothing done.
And this unforgettable moment back in 2008 during McCain's presidential bid. McCain showed his character and previewed the divisive political climate of the last decade.
I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He is not. No?
No, ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
No, ma'am. We'll give McCain the last word. Here he is in his own words about his own mortality.
I hope those who mourn my passing, and even those who don't, will celebrate, as I celebrate, a happy life lived in imperfect service to a country made of ideals whose continued success is the hope of the world. And I wish all of you great adventures, good company, and lives as lucky as mine.
So for those of you that have time, take a few moments to watch For Whom the Bell Tolls, that named after his favorite book. It's the HBO documentary, in which you'll see John McCain embraces his mistakes. He doesn't hide from them. He apologizes for them, in particular the Keating 5 savings and loan scandal. But he also embraces what he calls, or embraced, his adversarial relationship with the media.
Yeah.
He said to Chuck Todd once of NBC, "I hate you, Chuck, but I love the free press. It's necessary for a democracy," and he always defended the free press
And
to
you
the
see
very end.
so much outpouring from the press itself this weekend.
Yeah.
So many different anchors, reporters, Wolf Blitzer saying, look, I've known the man for 30 years. He didn't like some of my questions, but he
Right.
always respected it.
Yeah, he tangled with a lot of anchors and reporters, but all those people had great things to say about him
Yes.
in the very end. We will miss John McCain. 2 people are dead and 11 others are injured in the latest mass shooting to rock this nation. This time it happened at a video game tournament in Jacksonville, Florida. Police say the suspect brought a gun to the venue where the Madden 19 tournament was taking place and opened fire. They say the shooter then killed himself. The victims have now been identified as Eli Clayton and Taylor Robertson. This is just the latest mass shooting in Florida over the last few years, following the Pulse nightclub and Parkland school massacres. More now from Polo Sandoval.
Well, Dave and Laura, police in Jacksonville, Florida, confirming that the suspect behind the nation's latest mass shooting is a 24-year-old man from Baltimore, Maryland. Yesterday, he was identified as David Katz. He is among the 3 people who are dead at the scene. He opened fire at a video game competition Sunday afternoon inside that Jacksonville restaurant. Police also believe that Katz was a participant in that tournament, though they have not confirmed a motive, only saying that he used a handgun in the shooting. The ATF now processing that weapon. Investigators say Katz shot and killed 2 people at that restaurant. 9 others were also reportedly shot. This morning they're recovering from their injuries. Police now asking the community for any video that may have been shot at the scene. They already have those seconds of footage that have already circulated around on the internet, showing those moments before the shots rang out.
It's gonna be hard to get them on stream. It's not a tough out today. Excuse me, not an easy out.
Investigators now conducting a search of the suspect's home, his vehicle, and also believe he may have stayed at a hotel Saturday night. They believe that any evidence that they could find there could provide crucial clues as they try to piece together a motive. Dave and Laura.
Awful. Polo Sandoval, they're reporting. Thank you.
A former Vatican official says the Pope should resign over his handling of abuse allegations against an American cardinal. We're live in Rome.
Nice choices.
Of sexual abuse by clergy in the St. Louis area, Missouri, the first state to publicly do so since a Pennsylvania grand jury report documented decades of abuses and cover-ups.
Now, a former Vatican official is calling for Pope Francis to resign, claiming he told him in 2013 about sexual abuse allegations against an American cardinal, and he failed to act. That cardinal, Theodore McCarrick, resigned last month over a decades-old abuse allegation. CNN's Delia Gallagher is live for us in Rome with more.
Hi, Laura. You know, those allegations were published on Sunday in an 11-page document by the Pope's former envoy to the United States. And returning from Ireland last night on the papal plane, Pope Francis addressed the allegations. He told journalists this: "I will not say a single word on this. I read the statement this morning, and I must tell you sincerely, read the statement carefully and make your own judgment." The Pope also added that he won't speak about it now, but he may sometime in the future. This came as the Pope wrapped up what was really a somber visit to Ireland, where he apologized again for the Church's role in sex abuse. He asked for forgiveness. He met with survivors of clerical sex abuse, as well as survivors of Ireland's notorious mother and baby homes. But what we heard time and time again in Ireland is that people want action, not words. They want full transparency from the Vatican. And so it is likely that the Pope and the Vatican will have to be more forthcoming on this issue in the future. Laura?
More to come on that, certainly. Delia, thank you.
Legendary playwright and screenwriter Neil Simon has died. Simon died Sunday of complications from pneumonia. Neil Simon was a master of comedy. His laugh-filled hits included The Odd Couple, Barefoot in the Park, The Sunshine Boys, and Brighton Beach Memoirs. Simon wrote more than 30 plays over 6 decades.
He received 16 Tony nominations, winning Best Play 3 times. He won a Pulitzer Prize for his play Lost in Yonkers and won the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Neil Simon was 91.
All right, ahead, the boys from Honolulu, world beaters. Corey Ryer with the joy of the Little League World Series. In the Bleacher Report, next.
What
What does help for heart failure look like? It looks like Emily, cooking dinner for 10. It looks like Jonathan on a date with his wife. Entresto is a...
Our tributes pouring in to the late Senator John McCain, even pouring in from the sports world today.
Coy Wire has more in this morning's Bleacher Report.
Hey, buddy.
Good morning, Dave. Good morning, Laura. John McCain was a huge sports fan. I remember running into him in Phoenix one time, and all he wanted to do was talk ball. He loved teams from his home state of Arizona. And before the start of last night's Cardinals game in Dallas, both teams honored his memory.
At this time, please stand and join in a moment of silent reflection in memory of Senator McCain and his tireless service to our country.
Cardinals wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald was friends with McCain. He even penned a heartfelt tribute letter to him that was published in Sports Illustrated this past Christmas morning. He called him his mentor. He talked about his admiration for the American hero. Senator McCain was also a regular at Diamondbacks baseball games, often wearing one of their caps. And the team mourned the loss of their famous fan by hanging a jersey in the dugout with McCain's last name and the number 18. He had a standing ovation there as well. All right, let's move on. Say aloha to the new Little League World Series champs. The kid from Honolulu, Mana Lau Kong, hit the first pitch out of the park in Hawaii, never looked back. That kid's 12 years old and as tall as Dave Briggs, 6'1". Hawaii beat South Korea 3-0, delivering the first shutout in a title game in 16 years. Hawaii allowing just 3 runs the entire tournament. The islands hit by the remnants of Hurricane Lane over the weekend, so what great news for a state that could use some. University of South Carolina started replacing its football field this weekend after a beehive destroyed it. Queen Bee, that is, as in Beyonce rocking a concert with hubby Jay-Z at Williams-Brice Stadium last week. The field was torn up. Concert promoters reportedly paying between $150 to $200 grand to replace the turf. Hopefully, it'll be pitch perfect for the Gamecocks home opener against Coastal Carolina on Saturday. Having played 6 years in Buffalo, I know that Bills fans are some of the nicest fans on the planet. Yesterday, they even gave the opposing team's quarterback a standing ovation before the game. Listen.
Moments ago, just an unbelievable scene as Andy Dalton, the visiting quarterback, a standing ovation by Bills fans.
A warm Western New York welcome for Bengals star quarterback Andy Dalton before facing the Bills yesterday. Dalton threw a last-minute touchdown against the Ravens last year, and that sent Buffalo to the playoffs for the first time since '99. To date, Buffalo fans have donated more than $450 grand to Dalton and his wife's foundation as a thank you. Yeah, that's how they roll in Buffalo. And as a response, though, Dalton and his wife, Jordan, they yesterday made a donation back to Roswell Park Cancer Center in Buffalo. I mean, usually it's this team versus that team, but it's all love here, guys.
That is great. Hey, Coy, do you like the Little League World Series changes? They changed the bats, cut down dramatically on home runs. I mean, dramatically. It was a completely different game. Do you like it before when all the balls are flying out of the park?
Yeah, I like that style. I like the ding. I like the home runs.
Me too. Me
yeah.
too.
But still plenty of drama.
Hawaii, you know, allowed 3 runs the entire tournament, so it helped them. Coy Wire, thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Coy.
Ahead, Senator McCain, hero, maverick, and who can forget guest star in The Wedding Crashers. John McCain leaves behind a gaping hole. Here's how McCain said he wanted to be remembered.
He served his country, and not always right. Made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of errors, but served his country, and I hope we could add honorably.
On my hot water heater fell.
It's tough to imagine a Senate without him. It's tough to imagine politics without John McCain.
Reality setting in for emotional colleagues of John McCain. A week of tributes is now set for the legendary senator.
Excuse me, not an easy out.
Florida targeted by a mass shooter once again. This time it was a football video game tournament.
And the legendary Neil Simon has passed away. The playwright leaves behind a list of iconic shows, that shaped comedy in the 20th century. Welcome back to Early Start. I'm Laura Jarrett.
I'm Dave Briggs. It is 5:31 Eastern Time on a Monday. We are remembering the late, great Senator John McCain, the patriot, the maverick, the man who sacrificed, who was all about service. So here's how he might want you to remember him from his own memoir.
I hope those who mourn my passing, and even those who don't, will celebrate, as I celebrate, a happy life lived in imperfect service to a country made of ideals whose continued success is the hope of the world. And I wish all of you great adventures, good company, and lives as lucky as mine.
Lucky, called himself fortunate, suffered through brain cancer in 5.5 years as a POW and considered himself lucky, Laura.
Yes, absolutely.
We will remember him in just a moment with Julian Zelizer, a historian at Princeton. But we start with the tributes pouring in from around the world for John McCain, a titan of American politics, a true American hero. The Arizona senator died this weekend at his ranch in Sedona, Arizona. He was 81. His death coming a day after his family announced he had stopped all treatments for brain cancer, which he'd been battling for over a year.
McCain served as a naval bomber pilot and spent nearly 6 years as a prisoner of war in Vietnam, famously refusing an early release. He made his name in politics as a conservative maverick, a giant of the Senate and two-time presidential candidate. McCain is survived by his wife, Cindy, 7 children, and his mother, Roberta, who is 106 years old. There are plans for a full week of memorials. We get more on that from CNN's Kyung La in Phoenix.
Well, Dave and Laura, Senator John McCain, such a prominent national figure, but Arizona's favorite son. His services will begin here in his home state. The flags at the Capitol have been lowered in remembrance of the senator, and it is here where the services will begin. After a private service at the Rotunda, he will lie in state for 6 hours. Members of the public will begin to come in and say farewell. On Thursday morning, there will be a public memorial service at a local Baptist church in Phoenix, and then the senator departs for Washington. On Friday, the senator will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. On Saturday, a national memorial service at the National Cathedral. And then on Sunday, Senator McCain will be laid to rest at the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, where he began his public service, beginning his military life there. That is where he will be his final resting place. Dave, Laura.
All right, Kyung La, thank you. Let's bring in Daniel Lippman, reporter and co-author of Politico's Playbook, and CNN political analyst Julian Zelizer, historian and professor at Princeton University. Good morning to both of you. I want to allow you both to just kind of share your reflections on what John McCain meant for this country. Julian, if you were teaching a course about John McCain, what would you want the students to know about this hero?
Well, most important, this is someone who devoted his life to public service, whether it was the military or whether it was in Congress. He committed himself to the role of the government as a representative, as a senator, and I think that's most important. Second, he was part of the Reagan Revolution. He was a key part of the conservative movement that remade American politics since the 1980s, and in some ways, that's as important as his record as a maverick.
Daniel?
I think just how he put principle instead of party. And when he fell short, he fessed up, he admitted to it. And so there are a lot of senators and congressmen in Congress right now who don't operate with the same principles as John McCain. They either don't have principles, or those they do, they're willing to throw out the window in terms of political convenience. And so he has a lot of lessons he can teach every politician in America.
You know, Daniel, you talk about principles over party. Take it back to 2008. He's at a rally, and I want to play some sound from a woman who had some words to say about then presidential candidate Barack Obama.
I can't trust Obama. I have read about him, and he's an Arab. He is not. No.
No, ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about. He's not. Thank you.
You know, you look at that clip and he doesn't even hesitate.
Oh, he doesn't
make one move in the other direction. Daniel, he just does the right thing there. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's hard to imagine if that happened at a Trump rally, and they don't even have town halls for President Trump, and it's hard to see how Trump would respond in that scenario. He would probably encourage that woman, and that's kind of a sad tale for our country. And I think a lot of politicians, they haven't served in the military. You look at Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan, all leaders who have served the country in politics, but they don't have that moral core of having fought for our country.
Yeah, contrast that town hall moment with our president today, who was once a leader of the birther movement. But Julian, you write that John McCain ironically opened the door to the transformation that has remade the Republican Party and allowed for the rise of Trump. How so?
Yeah, he has a complex legacy. That 2008 clip that you just showed came in the context of his selecting Sarah Palin instead of Senator Lieberman as his running mate. Palin opened the door to a lot of these forces that are now part of Trump politics. He also was there as the Tea Party took form, and he was often critical of the Tea Party, but he was part of that establishment. And another part of his legacy is while he criticized President Trump, he often did vote for his Supreme Court pick, for his tax cut, and I think that's a complexity that Senator McCain himself would want discussed. He wouldn't want us to soft pedal his career, and he himself spoke about his imperfect legacy, and that's certainly part of his story, this relationship between the GOP and its fringe elements that kind of came together under President Trump.
Yeah, you know, his legacy is obviously unmatched, Daniel, but the president had very little to say about it. In fact, he didn't really say anything at all other than sympathies and respect. And then he posted an Instagram of himself. Meanwhile, all of the other statesmen, people from around the world, diplomats, other party leaders, other countries, have all kinds of, deepest condolences. I know everything we say doesn't shock us anymore, Daniel, but wasn't this pretty shocking?
Yeah, the Washington Post's Josh Dawsey, he reported last night how White House staff for Donald Trump, they proposed putting out a statement, a news release, calling McCain a hero after he passed away, and yet Trump nixed it. He wanted to go with a tweet instead. And so that kind of shocked me, because ordinarily when a notable American dies, the White House issues a statement. And John McCain was an extraordinary person, and so Trump just couldn't get over the fact that he battled and locked horns with McCain, even to provide some sympathy for McCain's last moments. And so remember that aide, Kelly Sadler, she said he's dying anyway, and the White House didn't apologize for that statement either.
Yeah.
Julia?
It's really petty politics, and I think these little moments when the whole world is praising, mourning, thinking about someone who did devote his life and body to the United States to do something like this, and those moments tell us a lot about the Trump presidency.
Yeah, not just all the Democrats who stepped up and had warm statements, but Merkel, Trudeau, you could go Benjamin Netanyahu, Emmanuel
Trump's own
Macron.
cabinet members, too.
The list goes on and on. So let's talk about quickly, before we turn to what's next in that primary, Julian, who carries his legacy? Because you look at the Republicans, Bob Corker is out, Jeff Flake is out, Paul Ryan is out. Those who did embody some of the spirit of John McCain, they are leaving. Perhaps a Nikki Haley or a Ben Sasse, but does anyone carry on his legacy, his work of bipartisanship in the Senate?
Not really. That's not what the Senate is about today. The Senate is divided deeply. He is a kind of final voice of that generation, and he understood that as well. So I'm not sure. Maybe Susan Collins at this point is the last standing person who embodies those ideals. But that is not where the Senate is going today, and we should be clear-eyed about that.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, last word there. We got a primary tomorrow.
Yeah, Doug Ducey, the Arizona governor, he's going to pick someone after this whole week of memorial services and funerals for McCain, but it's hard to imagine someone who will stand up against Donald Trump when needed, and those former congressmen like Matt Salmon that Ducey's considering. They don't exactly, ring, you don't think of them in terms of McCain loyalists who are going to replace him. No one can replace John McCain. Let's just be realistic about that.
Yeah. Well, and given Kelly Ward, the candidate in Arizona's statements about John McCain, you could argue he is on the ballot on Tuesday. She said that his statement from the family that they've stopped treatment was designed to hurt her. Just about 10 days ago, a week ago, she said that John McCain was complicit in the killing of Molly Tibbetts. So you would wonder if the Arizona voters have John McCain on their mind when they step into the voting booths on Tuesday. Daniel Lippman and Julian Zelzer, we appreciate you both remembering the great John McCain. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Well, a former Vatican official says the Pope should resign over his handling of abuse allegations against an American cardinal. We're live in Rome. Up next.
Time. 2 people are dead, 11 others injured in the latest mass shooting to rock this nation. This time it happened at a video gaming tournament in Jacksonville, Florida. Police say the suspect brought a gun to the venue where the Madden 19 tournament was taking place and opened fire. The shooter then killed himself. The victims have been identified as Eli Clayton and Taylor Robinson. More now from CNN's Polo Sandoval.
Well, Dave and Laura, police in Jacksonville, Florida, confirming that the suspect behind the nation's latest mass shooting is a 24-year-old man from Baltimore, Maryland. Yesterday, he was identified as David Katz. He is among the 3 people who are dead at the scene. He opened fire at a video game competition Sunday afternoon inside that Jacksonville restaurant. Police also believe that Katz was a participant in that tournament, though they have not confirmed a motive, only saying that he used a handgun in the shooting. The ATF now processing that weapon. Investigators say Katz shot and killed 2 people at that restaurant. 9 others were also reportedly shot. This morning they're recovering from their injuries. Police now asking the community for any video that may have been shot at the scene. They already have those seconds of footage that have already circulated around on the internet, showing those moments before the shots rang out.
It's gonna be hard to get them on stream. It's not a tough out today. Excuse me, not an easy out.
Investigators now conducting a search of the suspect's home, his vehicle, and also believe he may have stayed at a hotel Saturday night. They believe that any evidence that they could find there could provide crucial clues as they try to piece together a motive. Dave and Laura.
Polo Sandoval, thank you for that report. Well, New Day is about 10 minutes away. Allison Camerata joins us. And Allison, you were on that Straight Talk Express with John McCain. You've covered your share of political campaigns. What are you remembering about him this morning?
Oh my gosh, I remember so much. I mean, he was a reporter's dream, because he was a maverick, because he spoke sort of off the cuff, because he was funny. Reporters loved to cover him, and being on the Straight Talk Express was so much fun. I mean, it was 1999, it was his 2000 bid. We were in New Hampshire, and I got to spend his 63rd birthday with him. Oh, so we all went to a restaurant, and he chose me to sit at his table with him that night, and that was just a delight. And it was just so fun to be with Lindsey Graham, who, of course, they were such close friends, and John McCain. It was just really memorable to spend time and to watch him over and over in New Hampshire, how he worked the crowds, how much he liked retail politics. So today on New Day, we have many of his friends coming on to share their memories of John McCain. And we also are going to dive into what this feud is with Donald Trump. What's it about? What started it? So we have a White House insider coming on to tell us the backstory of why President Trump felt so negatively towards John McCain.
Yeah, and Mark Short, who worked with the president, will have some interesting insight about that. It's really unfortunate, Allison. It's just too bad the president couldn't rise above. It has to be small and petty at a time when this nation just needed to say something good about an American hero. But we look forward to the show.
Just on that point, how unusual it is for an American president not to acknowledge an American war hero. So yes, we will talk about all that.
Yeah, when you have world leaders all around. We could list more than a dozen world leaders who've stepped up with wonderful, warm sentiments about John McCain. Allie, we'll see you in just a little bit. Thanks.
Okay, see you then. Thanks, Allison. Well, Missouri Attorney General says his office will investigate allegations of sexual abuse by clergy in the St. Louis area. Missouri will be the first state to publicly do so since a Pennsylvania grand jury report documented decades of abuse and cover-ups. Now, a Vatican official is calling for Pope Francis to resign, claiming he told him in 2013 about sexual abuse allegations against an American cardinal, but he failed to act. CNN's Delia Gallagher is in Rome for us with more.
Laura, those allegations were published on Sunday in an 11-page statement from the Pope's former envoy to Washington, D.C., and the Pope was asked about them coming back from his trip to Ireland on the papal plane last night. This is what he told journalists. The Pope said, "I will not say a single word on this. I read the statement this morning, and I must tell you sincerely, read the statement carefully and make your own judgment." The Pope also said that he won't speak now, but he may at some time in the future. And all this came as the Pope wrapped up his 2-day trip to Ireland. It was a very different Ireland than the one John Paul II saw in 1979. Pope Francis apologized for the abuses committed by members of the Catholic Church and for the cover-up. He met with survivors of sex abuse and survivors of Ireland's notorious mother and baby homes. But, Laura, we've heard on the ground in Ireland that people want action, not just words. So it is likely that more will have to be forthcoming from the Pope and the Vatican on this issue. Laura?
Yes, more forthcoming indeed. Thank you so much.
Okay, exactly what we all need this morning. A little bit of joy. The Little League World Series